Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 330. I am your host, Michael. Joining me, as usual, our usual cast of characters, Gail from Community Digital News and the Falcon Valley Group, Daniel from the Inscribing for Boxing News. What's going on, lady and gent?
You best get talking, and we better hurry up because we got, as you said, fights on fights tonight.
On fights.
So many fights that took place this past weekend. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report, live YouTube show, podcast, as well as blog discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get talked about. If you want to find information, all information regarding the show, the website is the place to go to. P4pboxingreport.com, and repeat that, P4pboxingreport.com. On the page, you'll find links where to follow the show, where to catch the show all over the podcast realm, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, any and everywhere else between, but just about everywhere at this point, where you can find us on social media, the Facebook page, the YouTube page, the Tumblr page, IG, Twitter, where you can donate. We got a Cash Me and PayPal donation link. Check us out where you can email us. You can email the show, P4pboxing at P4pboxingreport.com. And last but certainly not least, you can check out the bottom portion of the page, the link to my online coaching page. I'm an online coach for Beachbody. If you're looking to get your body right during the summer, please check out my site. Please check out all the programs over on Beachbody On Demand, whether it's cardio, whether it's weightlifting, whether it's HIIT, anywhere and everything in between. Beachbody On Demand has it in store. Please check out the 2-week trial. I would take advantage of that if I were you. Beachbody On Demand has a 2-week free trial that runs throughout the year. That is, for 2 weeks, you'll get free access to all programs and whatnot on Beachbody On Demand. Also, if you're interested in a boxing-based workout, check out the 10 rounds program. It's a program of 6 weeks long, 3 days of cardio, 2 days of weightlifting. I would highly suggest that. If you want to take part of my Let's Build Together fitness challenges, I got one kicking up again on July 5th. Gail and Daniel have decided to take part. Again, I challenge Daniel to check out the 10 rounds program. So yeah, Beachbody On Demand. Check out my online coaching page there. Let's get things going. Like I said, fights on fights. So much action that took place this weekend. I will warn that because there were so many fights, don't know we'll get through each and every fight. But let's get things going, starting with ladies first. Let's start in Las Vegas. ESPN card headlined by Naoya Inoue, who fought mandatory defense against Michael Dasmarinas. Look, Inoue, this is a reason they call him the monster. He showed it in this fight. He was careful first round, selective, surveying the scene. But then in the second round, he found that he could get to Dasmarinas with body shots, particularly the left hook. Put him down in this twice in that round. Really began to go off and tenderize the rib cage and the liver of Dasmarinas. Finished him off in the third. I mean, what can you say, Gil? Is the monster the most explosive fighter in the game right now?
He has to be. I mean, really, who else is there? You could make a case that Canelo is. What's so interesting to me is here are these two men. They fight in a weight class exactly 50 pounds apart, 5-0. And their weapon of choice is exactly the same punch delivered with the same amount of force per inch per pound. That vicious, nasty, just mess you up left hook to the body that we could not love more. It is a joy to see them both delivering it. I mean, Inoue's opponents, they've got to know it's coming, right? I mean, this is not a surprise to anybody, and there isn't anything they can do about it. He so learns to time and studies where his opponent's going to go, can misdirect with that right jab, the right coming, the left up top, you're going to start protecting yourself and the body's open and you're dead. You're dead. You're done. And in this case, that's what he did. He gave it a round to get the lay of the land. You could tell that's exactly what he was doing. He started going to work. He dropped Dasmarinas before the end of the second round. And I am watching, saying out loud to an audience of one, myself, come on, man, don't get up. Don't get up, because you're just going to get another minute to think about what's coming at you in the third round, and it's going to happen all over again, and you're going to get tased by that left hook again. And he did, and it was one of those face down, they're done. So much for Mr. Hot and Spicy. But that's what we wanted to see. Inoue's had a long layoff. We wanted to see if there was any rust there. And remember how hard his last fight was. He had a broken face. You'd never know it. He looked in top form. Absolutely top form.
And what could be up next for him is very, very enticing. We'll talk about that during the news. Bit of a teaser here because there's so many fights here. Going to kind of run through it as much as we can. I'll take the second fight, the co-main event, if you will, and that is Mikaela Mayer. Fought former two-division champion Erica Farias. And Mayer, she got off to a bit of a rough start. I think she may have underestimated Farias a bit because she's older. She did a good job, the challenger from Argentina, of kind of switching things. 1 minute she would be up close and attack. The next minute she will step back and step around. Kind of had the champ off her game a bit, but you could just see slowly but surely, starting in the fourth, fifth round, she started to adjust her game. The thing that stayed consistent with her all fight long was the jab. And the thing that she discovered with the help of her trainer, Al Mitchell, Philly's Al Mitchell, is that Farias, she couldn't fight if you force her backwards. And that's what she did. She began to walk and chop her down, right? And took control in the second half, won by wide, comfortable decision. And it's going to be interesting where Mayer goes here. News broke during our time off that the World Boxing Super Series has announced that their next season is going to start off with a women's tournament. First time they're going to do a women's tournament. Coincidentally, this is going to be in the junior lightweight division. Will Bob Arum, her promoter, allow her to participate in that tournament? As a lot of folks know, as a lot of observers of women's boxing know, Mayer is the WBO champion, right? The WBC, IBF, WBA champion are all aligned with Matchroom. Can they, Matchroom, Arum, the organizers of the World Boxing Super Series, can they get them all together in a tournament? And I would throw in the likes of someone like Natasha Jonas, Delphine Persoon, should she decide to get back in the ring. Even Amanda Serrano. Look, Serrano has a belt at 126. Everybody's talking about the fight with Katie Taylor. She's fought in and around that 130, 135 division prior. Throw her in the mix as well. So it could, and Mayer has talked about her goal. She has a goal of becoming undisputed women's champion at 130 pounds. It would be nice. It would be a really good look if she and all of the excellent fighters in and around her division could come together and take part of that World Boxing Super Series tournament. So we will see where she goes from there. I'll go to you, Daniel, to talk about this final fight on the Las Vegas ESPN card. What turned out to be a low-key, very good matchup between Isaac Dogboe and Adam Lopez. Dogboe started off hot, right? Beginning to land punches, power shots, but Lopez began to find his bearings in the middle rounds. Dogboe tired of being at the end. There's questions about Dogboe still coming off of the Navarrete loss. Did he prove anything to you in this fight against Lopez?
He is still the main scene, Isaac Dogboe. He's still going to try to turn for it. He's still going to try to barrage you punches when he can. But the thing was, unfortunately, Lopez in the second half of the fight picked up the steam. Got his timing better, landed combinations better. But unfortunately, it was not at the speed of the judges per se, because obviously Dogboe got the decision. This is, like I said, his first major fight of featherweight that he wins, and I do not think, like I said, this fight should bring any confidence to his team about actually going to be a contender in this division, because the same problems that put him forth at 122, being like his size, because he was pretty small for 122, are only going to keep compounding when it comes to being at featherweight. Not to mention, like I said, his kryptonite Navarrete is still there. So that's very telling when it comes into that. Lopez, like I said, it's just a bump in the road. Hopefully, Top Rank doesn't react the same way that they kind of did with what they did with Elvis Rodriguez. He lost his first fight. Not too long after, he got cut. So hopefully Adam Lopez doesn't suffer some fate. He's a very good prospect. But good on Dogboe. He did win. And hopefully, though, he reconsiders the jump to featherweight and goes back down to 122, because there are some fights there that he can make and won't present the same issues that he would face if he stays at featherweight and tries to fight Navarrete again.
I would advise that he not fight Navarrete again. Don't entertain that at this point ever. Never, ever. They fought twice before, December 2018, May 2019, and he was just Dogboe was just overpowered and overwhelmed and beat up, right? I think if they were to fight 10 times, Navarrete would give Dogboe hell 10 times. I don't know if he beats a Gary Russell at that weight. Kanzu, I'm not so sure. Kid Galahad is going to fight Jazza Dickens for the vacant IBF belt later on this summer. I don't know about that either. I like the fact that he got the win, got himself back on a momentum swing. But moving forward, how far can he go at 126? That question is still in the air. Let's move on to some more fights here. And let's go to, how do I want to do this? Let's go to Houston, H-Town. And in a fight for the quote-unquote Juneteenth belt, celebrating Juneteenth over this past weekend, became an official federal holiday. Congratulations, Jay, to that. President Biden signing that bill. So everybody, a lot of Black people in particular were celebrating that over the weekend. The WBC decided to give a nod to that by creating a Juneteenth belt. And that was in concert with Jermall Charlo, WBC middleweight champion, defending his title against Juan Macias. And I go back to you, Gail. And a lot of people thought that Maul would really, really have his way with Macias. I didn't see the fight in total. I saw highlights of it, and I read it because I was on assignment covering the Inoue fight for Three Kings Boxing. And please check out my work and check out the fellows over at Three Kings Boxing, your source for pure, unadulterated boxing information. Go to threekingsboxing.com. I did an interview for them earlier today with world flyweight contender Suleiman Mabrina, who's fighting for a world title July 9th in LA. But yeah, because I was covering the Inoue fight for Three Kings, I wasn't able to see the Charlo fight, not much of it. Macias gave Charlo a much tougher time than many people expected. He said he wasn't hurt in the 8th round, I believe it was. A lot of people on my timeline said he was. Had a little knot over his, I want to say, right eye. And Macias was there all night long. He hit Charlo with punches all night long. Charlo landed punches against Macias all night long. He hurt him, buzzed him, but never finished him off. Is this cause to pause in terms of Charlo, the fact that he was given such a tough fight?
You have to wonder what the genesis of it was. Yes, he scored a shutout on all three judges' cards. He won every single round of the fight. Okay. He certainly, there was no question who won the fight. There was no question who was in charge. Having said that, the odds of, I mean, you just should have bet the odds that Macias would have made it to the final bell. You'd have had a nice little bit of money to put in your pocket. Nobody thought he was going to last through the first half of the fight, much less till the end. Let's remember, let us point out that this is the same Macias, the same Juan Macias Montiel, who was knocked the F out by Jaime Munguia in the second round. Okay, admittedly at 147. But nevertheless, that's an interesting comparison. Because Munguia also fought this weekend. There were also questions about where do we stand with Munguia and his skill level. So was it a matter of Macias just simply being one of those guys that refuses to quit? Tough shit, tough chin, tougher will. He wanted it more. He didn't have the offensive tools to get to Charlo, but he wasn't going away. So he made Charlo work every minute. Was it that? Or, and this would trouble me a lot more, that Charlo just didn't have the will himself to do what it took to get him out of there, that he was content to play with his food, to do what was necessary, but nothing more than that. Because when he does fight somebody of championship caliber, that might not cut it. And there might be a very rude awakening. Now, stepping back and putting my fan's hat on, that says to me, we may have some pretty darn competitive fights if that's the case, that I'd like to see. Who against who? Well, I really think there are a handful of options. There are so many of us that like to see him fight Demetrius Andrade, and isn't it about time we just get this off the table, get this done? I mean, really? Who else is out there for him to go after? Is it Chris Eubank has been suggested? I'm a little more lukewarm about that, but it certainly would be a different level of competition that he faced this Saturday. Admittedly, of Showtime's summer lineup, by consensus, this was the weakest main event and the weakest card. No surprises when it comes to the stuff you're going to see in Box Rec for the rest of time. But watching it, the eye test told a little bit different story. And I'm not sure we know the ending just yet.
Could Gail mention that he just Charlo didn't have that extra gear to finish him off? Could it be because of issues with weight? I know Maul has often talked about he's a middleweight, he's so comfortable at the weight. Well, at the weigh-in, first time getting on the scales, Daniel, he was 0.4 pounds over, right? To look at him in the ring, it's obvious that he's big, very big at that weight. Is it a case of him just, while he says he's so comfortable at 160, is he really at 168? And if we talk in future here, he mentioned Golovkin, he mentioned Canelo, right? He's later subsequently mentioned Andrade. I wouldn't be upset against a fight between him and Eubank Jr. Bring that on. People may not like Eubank, whatever, but I think he's a decent fighter, and I think based on what we saw against Macias against Montiel, excuse me. Thanks for the correction in the private chat, Daniel. Chris Eubank Jr. give Maul a decent fight. Talk about the issue of why is Charlo so dogmatic about being a middleweight when it's obvious he's probably more of a super middleweight at this point. A. B. Where do you think he would go moving forward?
This is as from a PR perspective and from an outsider's point of view, it's a hole that he made on himself because ever since he was himself was 154, as he moved up to 160, the name him and his brother Mel kept calling out has been Canelo. And you put yourself in a position where you were trying to get fight Canelo, but then Canelo decided, no, I'm going to move up. I'm going to be at 168, and I'm going to unify 168. Well, that put Maul in the position. Okay, I could probably find some decent fights here at middleweight, but the warning sign was there. Like when you, even though it was less than half a pound, he made it to the second time just fine. But that already tells you that maybe his body is not getting there anymore the way it used to make middleweight. And unfortunately, it could well have been tapped into this performance because I don't exactly agree that he won every round. Like I could say that Montiel probably won 3, maybe 4 rounds later on, just out of sheer guts. But it was evident Maul won the fight. The problem now is if the weight drain falls into it, you are now falling into a situation where time is not on your side and trying to make it like a fight with Golovkin, because all indications are that Golovkin is penciled in for New Year's Eve in Japan. That's one. Andrade is a fight. It's a fight it's against an opponent that in many ways is like yourself. Smart, calculating, very, very skilled, but so far has not shown, at least in this weight, that you can close the show. Sorry. So that would be an interesting pairing. And Eubanks would actually keep it, I think, in the PBC picture, because Eubanks is in this weird area where he's partly with Eddie Hearn, but still partly with PBC. So keeping the PBC circle, Eubanks would actually work. But the fights that will make you the money are at the zone, which means you have to go to the zone to make that fight. Because I don't think even Eddie's gonna try to send Andrade to the PBC unless the money was right. But more than likely, I would not be surprised that either by the end of this year or the first half of 2022, he decides to move up to super middleweight, which puts him again in line with Canelo, but also puts him again with somebody that he has had very choice words in the past of one David Benavidez. And that's a dangerous situation for Maul because Maul is a pretty big middleweight. Benavidez is bigger than him.
I tell you one thing, excuse me for interruption. Based on that Maul that we saw Saturday, the one fighter who he should stay away from, Benavidez.
Absolutely right. Yep. I think Benavidez would crush him at super middleweight, and that's why he doesn't want to move up, because that is a fight to make.
Yep. And exactly, that's the fight to make. He's not a weird space. He's too big for middleweight, but it may be compared to the other ones, other than Canelo, he may be too small for super middleweight, which is pretty talented. So he's kind of stuck in this middle space. But David's already waiting. He's already calling them out as of I think a few hours ago. So either try to make yourself lose weight as much as you can or face the murderer's row. Choice is yours, Maul.
Indeed, the choice is his. We will see where he goes. One thing's for sure. Let's stop messing around here. There are big fights available for you at 160 or 168. It's high time that you make the move. I don't care if it's Andrade. I don't care if it's Eubank. I don't care if it's Golovkin in 2022. Daniel mentioned that Golovkin is basically set to fight over in Japan. He's referring to a fight against Ryota Murata, which would be a huge fight over in Japan. I don't care if it's Benavidez or if you have to move up to put yourself in a position to face Canelo. Damn it, do it. Bottom line is you got to do something in your career. You, 30, 31 years old now? Make these fights happen, Maul, wherever direction you go. Let's move on to some more fights here. I know that Angelo Leo fought on the undercard. He won by very good by decision, right, Gail?
Correct, by decision. By
And I
a
heard
fair,
it.
decent
Go ahead.
decision.
So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. I'm not gonna do a recap at this time, again because there was so many fights that we have to kind of run through here. Let's go to from Houston. Let's stay in Texas and go from Houston to El Paso. The Houston card was on Showtime. I mentioned earlier with Inoue that card was in Vegas on ESPN. This El Paso card took place Saturday afternoon on the Zone, a Golden Boy promoted show. Main event for that, Gail, was Munguia against Szeremeta. Munguia, he won, and he won fairly easy, right? Had his way with him. I penned an article about this for Three Kings Boxing. He called out either a fight with Golovkin or a fight, if he can't get that, a fight with Gabe Rosado, who we'll talk about in a bit. The question is, at this point, I tend to think that he's not. Daniel mentioned that Golovkin's playing, so that means Munguia, Golovkin. That's not going to happen. We just talked about Maul, right? If you're Golden Boy, what do you do with him? Do you continue to have these kind of fights where he gets exposure and whatnot, or do you try to get him a higher profile fight in 160? He's ranked 1 by the BC and the BO, I believe. He's ranked high across the board. After a while, people are going to start asking, you in middleweight now, and you've been at middleweight for a while. When are you going to get a big fight?
Well, to his defense, he's sort of in a tough spot because he was held hostage by Canelo there for a little while. They weren't going to match up those two guys in the stable. Then Canelo leaves middleweight. The belts start shuffling around. Well, they're in Maul's hands for the most part. Now you've got the promoter firewall to deal with. But truly, Charlo versus Munguia is a great fight. Actually, from Charlo's point of view, I would take that fight before I take a fight with someone like Andrade, because that's a styles make fights plus for him. Because Munguia is fairly simple. I'm not saying unskilled, but his approach is fairly simple. A come forward fighter. He's tall, but he's not big. I think that's a good style matchup for him.
And let's face it, he can be hit.
He absolutely can be hit. But how many of us want to see Munguia and Rosado? I mean, come on. That is from a entertainment point of view and a practical point of view, it's probably the fight to make. And we'll talk about that down the line. And putting Munguia on cards that are primarily California based or in Mexico, where he still does have a following. There was quite a crowd there in El Paso to see Munguia. So he's marketable. They've just got to keep him busy until the belts get freed up and Maul moves up. Somebody else drops a belt. Golovkin retires and that belt's available. I just don't think he's going to wait around for Golovkin. I think that's the ultimate goal. How long that'll take, and really whether Golovkin fights after this New Year's Eve fight, I wouldn't put a huge bet on it. He's a little dismayed by the business. If he gets a big cash out, which I think he will, to fight in Japan on New Year's Eve, he might just decide he's done. But we'll find out. We got 6 months to find out how it's going to go now.
Gail mentioned her interest in a fight between Munguia and Rosado. Let's talk about him a bit, Daniel. He fought a guy by the name of nicknamed the Bully. Back I don't even gonna try to pronounce his last name. My apologies for that.
I'll step in for you all. Bekdamir Melikuziev. Bekdamir Melikuziev.
Melikuziev. I just
One of
call
the
him Beck Meliku
Beck,
Beck the Bully
the
Beck the Bully
bully.
Melikuziev.
Part of that big
And
stable that Joel Diaz has out in Indio, California, of multiple very, very skilled Uzbekistan fighters. I'll let you take it
Beck,
from
yeah, Beck the Bully Melikuziev, Daniel. And Melikuziev had early success. Put Rosado down, body shot right. Was pretty much having his way until Rosado, the dramatic fighter he is, he caught the Bully with the tremendous right hand. One shot, boom, put him down and out. Coincidence that Rosado called for a fight against Munguia after the fight? Nope. Coincidence that Munguia threw Rosado's name in the picture after his win? Nope. All roads to me leading to a fight between Munguia and Rosado probably towards the end of this year. Your thoughts, Daniel?
Oh, that was a beautiful shot. Yeah, but I'm gonna be the same. I'm not gonna pronounce it. I'm just gonna call him Zip because I think that's his nickname, Zip. Zip Bully. Zip Bully pretty much was having his way with Rosado in the beginning of the fight, including that knockdown. But if you know anything about Gabe Rosado, you know that he's a tough kid. And he's not going to go down easily. And he didn't. Like, he got up, he readjusted, and he just waited for that Juan Manuel Marquez Manny Pacquiao style punch that landed perfectly right on the chin, right as Zip Bully was coming in, and dude unfortunately fell flat on his face. It was bad too. Fell flat on his face. His legs were bent. He didn't fully recover until like a few minutes. And Rosado, you can tell he knew what he did. And he got up and celebrated. And it's a good victory for a fighter in Rosado who he's one of the hard luck fighters in the sport because he's had a couple of chances to be a champion. And whether it's because of, in the case of Golovkin, unfortunately, he was outclassed a bit, or when he fought Peter Quillen, a cut stopped the fight that he was likely winning. And he just hasn't had luck. He was somewhat relegated to gatekeeper status. This is a big lift for his career because now, yeah, you say what you want about making a fire Munguia, say what you want about Munguia getting into the area, but they're probably the main, just because Mexico he probably wants the WBC belt first. That means small. That means Zanfer and Oscar dealing with Al, where he could go easily with the O and then challenge Andrade. But before that, I think he really wants to make sure that he can take his shots from skilled fighters, because that's one of his biggest flaws. Unfortunately, he comes forward, he's great on offense, and even though Munguia showed improvement on this fight, we know it's against a last-minute opponent, and he still got hit. Rosado would be the perfect example for that. Somebody that is going to be disciplined. He's going to test you. He's going to make sure that he's going to try to outbox you. And if not, he is going to brawl with you. And he's not afraid of getting hit, and he's not afraid of getting cut. So if this is the step-up fight to make before you make the move towards either Andrade or Maul, I'm all for it. No, not to mention classic Mexican versus Puerto Rican matchup. You could put this fight in Texas, you can put this fight in Cali or Vegas, or you could put this fight in the East Coast, put it in Philly, Rosado's hometown. He's earned it. Like, he's done enough work for you. Whether it's PBC Golden Boy, he's earned a chance to have a hometown homecoming, a big fight, even if it could be his last actual payday.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, a shout out to League Rose who joined us in the live chat, live YouTube chat. Thanks for joining us. If you have any questions or comments, please don't be afraid to ask your question or give a comment, further comment. Yeah, in terms of Rosado, absolutely. Look, he's a fight fan. He's a fight fan's favorite, right? Um, is he? Will he ever win a world title? Probably not. Not at this stage, right? But he gives good action. He has that kind of personality outside the ring that the folks love and gravitate to. And again, the drama with him. He can be behind. He can get beat up. He can get knocked down, and then he can pull it out the blue with one shot. Right? He's always there. He always gives yeoman's work every time he gets in the ring. And if they want to put him in there with Munguia, uh, fans would eat it up. Media would eat it up as well. And if Styles made anything, it would make for a really, really good fight, a barn burner.
Well,
If
let's add this, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Golden Boy's a little shy on, inventory right now.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially money making inventory. They've got a lot of prospects in the pipeline, but Virgil Ortiz isn't quite there yet. They're waiting on a couple of others. So for now, this is one of the bigger money fights they can actually make. This is a good gate fight for them. The rivalry is great. You got a Philly fighter. The first guy to congratulate Rosado on the win was Bernard Hopkins, who's now a Golden Boy executive. They were celebrating. Oscar was laughing. They couldn't believe it, I think, because they've been very high on Bektemir. And it is not going to hurt Bektemir, who's still very young and very inexperienced. He'll learn from this, that when you're across from a veteran with nothing to lose, he got very careless because Melikuziev is a very hard puncher. He does have skills, but he was up against a guy whose experience beat him. Rosado knew what to do. Rosado admitted later he got zinged pretty hard by that left hook, but he took the knee to buy himself time and make sure he didn't take any additional punishment. That's betting on yourself to come back in a big way doing something like that. I mean, that takes some nerve. And that's the kind of thing I really admire. And listen, he absolutely got robbed in his last fight against Danny Jacobs. After this fight, where he beat Melikuziev, he said multiple times in post-fight interviews, hey, I beat Danny Jacobs. Everybody knows it. Enough said. I beat him. It's right there. So I deserve another shot. He seems to have a fire lit under him. He looked good. And here's the most amazing part of all. He didn't get cut. His face was clean as a whistle at the end of that fight. So he's ready to go. I think Golden Boy needs to figure out, how do they build this up? How do they bet, big on him and, try to make a little money maybe later this summer with him.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's hope. Well, I'm gonna say let's hope, but for all parties involved, it would behoove them to try to make that fight. Yeah, let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. Final fight here. I'm going back to you, Gail, on this one, and that is going to end this recap segment talking about women's boxing as Marlen Esparza, right? Won a title, right? Well, Marlen Esparza, I should say, very good, highly decorated women's fighter. She had, I believe, her first title shot over the weekend on the undercard here. Fought for the WBC flyweight title against a compatriot, fellow Mexican fighter, right? And it wasn't the easy win or easy. Esparza won, but it wasn't the easy win that some thought. She fought Zamora for the WBC title, right? Esparza went down, I believe, in the first round, and she had her moments of success, but Zamora was right there. Zamora was the fresher fighter in the end. Esparza got a type decision, but based on checking out my timeline, Gail, there were a lot of folks who felt that Zamora won. I believe you watched the fight. Your take on it?
This was a tough one. I did think Zamora had won. It wasn't, it's one of those things where if you disagree with the cards, it was a close enough fight that it wasn't a robbery by any means. But boy, if it'd been me, this is one of those fights where the knockdown in the first round is the deciding factor in the fight. I also found it interesting as a side note that Esparza was back down to 112 after taking her last fight at 118, coming back. That's a pretty big drop in those weight divisions. I wasn't thinking she was going to come all the way back down to 112 for some reason, but boy, she did look good. She was very fit. I think it might have been the eye test in this fight that got her the nod, but it's absolutely the biggest win of her career. Zamora is a serious veteran. For a women's fighter to have just shy of 40 fights, that's a lot. And they do tend to be Mexican women pros in the smaller weight divisions. And interestingly enough, despite the fact she's so experienced, she and Esparza are very close in age. They're only about 7 months apart or so. So a really, really good win for Esparza. There are a lot of fights out there for her when you're in the flyweight division or thereabouts for women. You've got a lot more opposition. And the truth is, the victories at this level mean a lot more versus, once you start going up in weight, you start running out of quality opponents. So she is one of the bright stars in Golden Boy's stable right now. Maybe not the biggest moneymaker, but again, they're going to run with whatever they've got. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Marlen back in the ring sooner than later. And I know she'd love to avenge the loss she had against Sinisa Estrada. But boy, if I am her management team, I tell her to think long and hard before she wants something like that. Estrada is a buzzsaw, and I don't think the outcome of their first fight changes much in a rematch.
My thing is, first of all, no, Estrada, she's not beating her, period. My thing is, I mentioned earlier in the show that I interviewed Salim Obina. Obina is fighting Fujioka for the WBA belt. Esparza has the WBC belt. Let's just say Obina wins in July. How about this is kind of gun jumping here and prognosticating here, maybe unfairly, but let's just say Urbina wins. How about her Esparza too for unification at 112 pounds? Just saying.
I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. Whoever wins unification fight, I'm always in favor of that.
Question here from the chat from Lee. He says, in terms of that Esparza fight against Zamora, he asks round one of Esparza Zamora presents an interesting test in terms of scoring philosophy. Esparza controlled most of the round only to be dropped late. How do you guys score that round and why? Since you saw the fight, Gail, I'll go to you.
Well, first of all, Lee, you always make us think. Thank you very much.
Well, he says actually she was dropped midway, but
yeah,
not
I
late.
think it's still a very viable question. And I think of it the same way as I would think of a fighter being controlling a fight for the majority and then getting dropped to end the fight, or dropped and the referee calls it. You get dropped. I think no matter what you did, you either made a very serious mistake, which is what happened to Melikuziev with Rosado, or your chin lets you down. I mean, something turns the tide. If you've made a mistake, it really negates, to me, any other effort you made. That if I'm sitting there as the judge, that's my call. You controlled the round up to the point you didn't, and I think that just negates anything you did leading up to that. It's too big a change in the tide.
Okay, cool. Thanks. I hope that answers your question, Lee. Let's move on to got all those fights through in relative quick manner.
Well, wait a minute. Didn't you forget one? Didn't you forget a main event in Guadalajara, or wasn't the main event?
Oh gosh, I mean, if you want to talk about your boyfriend getting out schooled by former UFC great, by all means, Gail.
Well, we will mention that a crowd in Guadalajara got to cheer on the greatest Mexican fighter in their history, Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., who weighed in at 143 pounds at age 58. Looked good. That's got to impress you. The fight in the main event was, truly an exhibition. There was headgear on until the end of the fight, last round. Fighting. I've got air quotes flying around that. Hector Camacho Jr., the storyline being that Jr. was there to avenge Dad's drubbing by Chavez Sr. But at the end, it was all good fun. They embraced, shake hands, and Chavez Sr. handed over his purse to the Camacho family as a goodwill gesture, which I thought was pretty classy. Unfortunately, none of that class has ever rubbed off on his son. The only thing they share in common is the name. I wrote in a column for NewYorkFights.com, NYFights.com, that a lot of us have wondered, whether Junior was really Senior's natural son, because just doesn't pass the eye test. So Junior blew through weight again for this fight with MMA retired star Anderson Silva, and by God, Silva beat him on the cards. This is a victory not just for Silva and his team, who are elated, as you can imagine, but for all of MMA, because their guys have been taking a hit in all of these novelty celebrity fights, and Silva's the first guy to beat a legit boxer in the ring. So where Silva pops up next, who knows? He fought in mixed martial arts at 185. This was contracted for 180 until Chavez renegotiated for 182 and then blew through that. So it was a 185 fight, essentially. Although I bet he weighed every bit of 205 pounds fight night. What else is new? So will Chavez Jr. go away? Oh my God, I hope so.
He won't. Sorry to disappoint. He won't.
That man follows me around, I swear. It's just a specter of him. But it was entertaining. I'd love to know what the pay-per-view made for Fight TV, who was carrying the card. The other bit of trivia from that card that was interesting is there was Canelo Alvarez in the audience in his hometown of Guadalajara with his entourage and his family, who went up into the ring and congratulated Silva after the fight. Ooh, loved it.
I mean, what can you say about Chavez? Congratulations to shout out to Canelo. Silva, he was just he kind of fanboy out at the sight of Canelo. It is what it is, and he's a star. And when he shows up, the people react in a certain way. And you saw that in Guadalajara, right? And it is overall a successful thing, despite Chavez again Jr. Embarrassing his family name. The Chavez Senior, he was the talk of he was the focus, in my opinion, and congratulations to him on the gesture, giving money to the Camacho family, who's been going through a tough time, particularly in the aftermath of Hector Camacho Senior's untimely and unfortunate passing. So again, kudos to him. That was really nice of what he did, and I said, let's hope Chavez Jr. goes off into the sunset and does whatever he wants to do. But, he's annoying like that. And people gravitate to him for some reason. He'll find a way to weasel himself back into a fight against someone. He's just, he's a troll like that, sadly. He needs to get his ass out the game because who wants to see him again at this point? But it is what it is. Let's move on to some news here. We kind of teased at this and when talking about Inoue, and I asked what could be next for him, what could be possible, what's possibly up for him. The reason I asked that is because, and Gail mentioned the fighters we're going to talk about next. They was in attendance watching Inoue perform. News broke the day of this fight that Casimero, who was supposed to fight Rigo, right? Well, news just broke that suddenly Rigo is out, and he's being replaced by newly crowned WBC champion Nonito Donaire, who's going to fight Casimero August 14th for what suddenly turns into a legit unification bout. WBC, WBO unification bout at 118 pounds, Daniel. Both men, Donaire and Casimero, was in attendance to watch Inoue. Both were asked by boxing media about the fight. On paper, I believe it's going to be on Showtime. On paper, all Filipino matchup. This should be a dandy of a fight, and yeah, let's make this happen. Inoue said he's interested. He wants the winner. He said if it was a preference, it would be Donaire. But bottom line is he wants the winner of that fight. This is a really, really good look at 118 pounds. To quote Wilder, I can't wait.
No, yeah, nobody can wait now. The main question is how much was let's be blunt. How much was Rigo's bribe to step away from this?
Right, because you didn't hear anything about injuries or anything like that. Just all of a sudden, he's getting bounced. It's really not right what they're doing to him. If we're going to keep it objective here and keep it a buck, it's not right what they're doing to him. The problem is he's being and what makes it worse, he's being replaced by a guy that Rigo not just beat, but beat decisively when they fought years ago. But the problem is, sadly, nobody cares about Rigo. Yeah. Donaire, he's the fight against Inoue in 2019, how he looked in those dismantling Obali. He's a hot name right now.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I just saw what Lee put in there. Supposedly was offered a chance to fight the winner, Casimero Donaire. Lee, man, they're gonna have to bribe him again then, because Inoue is gonna come in with that money. They may actually could be a legitimate chance that you could have competing cards on New Year's Eve in Japan, and it'll be interesting to see because we all talk, like I said, we all sing praises of Inoue, and deservedly so. But one of the few things that people don't know is really hardcore is that in Japan, Murata's the more popular one between him and Inoue. So that's one area that is going to be very interesting. Now, the main saving grace for Rigo, though, is that Donaire has said he wants to avenge that loss. And it would be a good way to avenge it because that loss pretty much took his career on somewhat of a tailspin. Neither man has been the same since that fight, career-wise. So it would be a good way to fit. But we know what the money is. This is one of the Inoue Donaire, so it's one of those fights that you know Bob's going to be happily sitting with Al across the table. He'll have to stomach Richard Schaefer again for a little bit. But that's going to be the fight to make. And good on them. Good on them because Casimero's already talking shit. He's already called Inoue easy work. So you know what need to do, Nonito.
When is he not talking mess up when it comes to Inoue? He's been talking. He's been popping off at the mouth about Inoue ever since he won the title.
Oh, please. Filipino fighters are all sassy. Look at Dasmarinas said, oh, yeah, Inoue has not faced anything like my hot and spicy punches. Well, I hope he enjoyed that. That's all he got out of it other than his paycheck. For the hardcore, this was a very exciting announcement. This is becoming somewhat of a de facto tournament, depending on how it all turns out. The story is really interesting as to how it all came about. After Donaire made the announcement, which was via social media, and he kind of dropped it in saying, how'd you like my little surprise here? Then apparently Rachel Donaire, his wife, who has been his manager for a long time, who is now his trainer, explained it as saying, that she got this contact from Sean Gibbons, who is Casimero's manager, who everybody knows, that he contacted her and Nonito directly and said, "Hey, you want some of this? It's here for you." The literal tweet, and with an actual one of those preloaded invites, and you click yes or no, and they clicked yes. Richard Schaefer works his magic, and as Donaire said, bibbity bobbity boo switcheroo. And his wife and Sean negotiated. PBC was in, TGB was in, Showtime was in. They were all in. Rigo takes a seat. I think quite a few people breathed a sigh of relief. And those of us who are happily within driving distance of the war grounds at StubHub cannot wait. There's a sizable Filipino audience in the greater Los Angeles area. And if you include all of Southern California, more than enough fans to fill that place. It will be crazy. It's the right fight in the right spot. It won't be real subtle no matter what happens. And boy, you have to give the early nod to Donaire based on his recent performance. And he's so fresh. It's June and he can come back for a fight in August. That's very impressive. Yeah. And in the chat, if you want to repeat this, our friend Lee Groves, who is sort of a de facto panelist for us tonight, is one of the experts at CompuBox, who's got all the stats at the ready. You want to report that out, Michael?
Yeah. He said that Dasmarinas landed only 12 hot and spicy punches in the bout. Inoue landed 38, including 17 body shots. Correction, those punches he landed were mild and lukewarm. So yeah, he landed those shots, but they didn't bother Inoue at all. He dismissed them like nothing punches that they were. Dasmarinas in that fight, he fought on the back foot on the move. Not mad at him for doing that, but he didn't put no oomph in those punches, and you saw what happened was the monster solved the puzzle and figured him out and decided what was opening. It was all she wrote. It was Good Night, Irene. In terms of Inoue, in terms of Casimero being offered the winner, who knows whether that's really the case. I think that was nullified once Inoue said after the fight that if Inoue said that he wanted to fight the winner after the fight, it's a good bet that that word was tossed around to the powers that be, to those behind the scenes before the fight. So once that word got out, probably before the fight, before the fight took place, Rigo getting offered, yeah, it wasn't going to happen. It's not going to happen. Again, it sucks what happens to him. If we're really going to be honest here, they did him dirty. They did Rigo dirty, but people are not going to be mad because of what's going to appear, what's going to happen in August, and what could be in store down the road. All things lead to a unification bout at 118, and for those, myself included, kind of privately wondering when Inoue is going to get that big fight, his next big fight. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. He's going to fight the winner of Donaire and Casimero, and all boxing fans should be excited about that. Very, very excited about that. Bigly excited about that. Any other news that you wanted to talk about before we move on and do some previews? Gail and Daniel, the floor is yours.
You know, it's hard to believe that we haven't had a show since the odd Fury and Wilder news conference for Fury Wilder 3 in Los Angeles. My first in-person news conference since the pandemic shut everything down. And ironically, the last news conference I attended in December 2019 was for Fury Wilder 2. So it was an odd juxtaposition, a very different vibe in the room, very subdued, far fewer media in attendance. But thank God you can always count on Tyson Fury to put on a show. And Wilder, as you all know by now, decided not to take any media questions, not to take even any questions from the moderator, Christina Poncher, who everybody loves and treats very fairly, whether they're in her camp or not. He declined. His trainer, Malik Scott, took all the questions for him, did every interview after the news conference, every one-on-one asked of him. He represented Deontay very, very well. I'll hand it to him. He did an extremely good job. But come on, Fury was absolutely in command, on the throne, doing what he does. I don't think we're going to see a whole different outcome than we saw last time. And of course, Fury is predicting it will take him even less time. And every time that Fury has talked smack and made a prediction, it has been right. So don't bet against the man. As little as anyone wanted to see this fight, though, tickets are selling well. People are excited about it. It's going to be a nice boost to the decimated economy in Las Vegas. That's not a bad thing. And I do like what they've done with the undercard. The promoter team has placed all heavyweight fights on the undercard with a variety of prospects. So as we like to say on the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, I don't hate it. I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting press conference. The one thing that probably stuck out to me, and to me, this will be a worrying sign for Team Fury, is him saying he's going to try to come in at 300 pounds. We know Fury when he's not in the ring actually training, we know he moonlights as an offensive line prospect. But that's not a good thing to do when you're trying to fight somebody like Wilder who can catch you still. Because not only can you fall behind, it also may tell me maybe you did something in that trip to Miami you were not supposed to. And you may be trying to find excuses to say, well, that's the reason why I came out of shape, because I did this. Other than that, that press conference was just...
Daniel,
What did you make? What did you make, Daniel, of the fact that Wilder decided not to speak after his initial comments? What do you think of Malik Scott? The way he conducted himself, going back and forth with Wilder, when personally I didn't think he needed to. I'll just say for the record, I found it odd from Wilder. If he would have said that, we had the first fight, we had the second fight, I'm not going to say anything right now. I'm decided to do my talking in the ring. I would have respected that. But for him to just say not anything, so this, questions or whatnot, because it wasn't bad questions, and then nothing. And then Malik Scott getting back and forth with Fury. Well, I know about Fury's punches because he broke my nose or whatever, and like that, and getting over strategy. What are you doing? That wasn't necessary, sir. Stick to the fight itself. You lost that battle back and forth with Fury. You don't go with someone who's sharp-tongued and who's quick-witted, who can think on his feet like Fury can.
Well, I'll say this about Wilder. That was a smart move for this instance, because all of us have probably been involved in at least one or two press conferences. And unfortunately, one of the biggest norms that happens in press conferences, particularly if it involves sports and politics, rarely, if ever, do they ever stay on the topic at hand. And if Wilder would have opened this up to the questions, we know damn well that he was not going to be asked about this fight. He was going to be asked about the suit. He's going to be asked about the hand wraps. He's going to be asked about Mark Brilliant. Granted, he brought that upon himself by talking all that shit. But at the end of the day, you knew you were not going to be asked about this fight. You were going to be asked about all those statements. And rather than relitigate all of that all over again, staying quiet, that works. And with Malik Scott, that area where Fury's when it came out I know Wilder's not going to be a great fighter because you're not a great fighter. Sir, a lot of the best trainers in the world have not been great fighters. Need we look at one Freddie Roach to see that sometimes the best people can actually, rather than do, they teach better. So you may not want to open your mouth when it comes into that. Because unlike you, Mr. Fury, who has been partying it up last couple of weeks, at least from what we've seen, Wilder has been training this whole time. Focusing this whole time. Turning his property into pretty much a fight camp because he doesn't have to leave. And the other mistake that you have was neither of you have fought since then. And if Wilder's coming in that way, at least in that mindset, where as Fury, you've been around having fun, and when it comes to Fury, idle hands are the devil's playground. You may want to rethink your strategy a bit, because you can talk smack, you can do everything you want. People are going to give you credit for that. But don't let it become a situation where you boast yourself too much and then it comes out something different, because Wilder only won probably 2 or 3 rounds between the two fights. But he has proven to knock you down. And Yes, you can debate the count in the first and the 12th round. You can debate that all you want. But at the end of the day, you've proven you can hurt Mr. Wilder. Well, Mr. Wilder has proven he can hurt you too.
Yeah. So yeah, that was again, there was interesting developments during that that press conference to kick off Fury Wilder 3, which will take place July 24th on pay-per-view. So I wonder during is this going to be the only press conference, or are they going to have more than one leading up to the fight? Does anybody know?
It's the only one.
This was it. And I don't think it was I agree with Daniel. Given Wilder's statements the last 16, 17 months, he was right not to engage. I think he did make a statement. He did make a statement on the record, all of 53 words, 23 seconds. I counted both. That's it. That's all we got. It opens him up to a lot of questions he doesn't want to answer. And, a guy like Tyson Fury wants to play tug of war with you. He wants you to pick up the other end of the rope and yank it good and hard so he can yank it back and mess with you. That's absolutely in his wheelhouse. When Wilder refused to do that with Fury, he took away some of his fun. Now, Malik Scott jumped in, and then they decided to go at it. For a news conference, hey, it's boxing. I didn't hate it. That was fine. I'm not sure what the point was. But not refusing to engage with Fury was probably the smartest thing he could have done. Listen, he's gotten nothing but criticism for the comments he's made, the excuses, some of the very bizarre statements he's made. Well, now he's getting criticism for not talking. What's the difference? I think this was the smart way to go. He was going to get it either way. Let's let them do their talking in the ring, as he said, and Fury will carry the promotion just fine. If anybody's worried about, but he's not there promoting the fight, he's not doing his part, he doesn't need to do that. I'm not too worried about it. And, I think we also need to be a little bit careful about this sense of entitlement that especially traditional, formally trained journalists have, and I will own that. A lot of them think people like a professional athlete, Deontay Wilder, Marshawn Lynch, Naomi Osaka, owe them interviews. No, they do not. No, they don't. They might owe their promoter or their sanctioning organization or their organizing body, commission, All England Tennis Club, something contractually. They do not owe us, the journalists, comments. And if we can't put a story together through observation and research and other parties, we have no business being there. End of discussion.
Interesting take there from Gail, and she has a point. She's absolutely right about that. They don't owe. Sure, there are certain obligations and protocol and whatnot in terms of media relations between media and fans, but yeah, they don't technically owe us a damn thing in that regard. They sit there and there is a sense of entitlement. Would it be nice? Yeah. Would it be nice for boxers to open themselves up? Absolutely. But the relationship could be better from either side. But is it just automatically that they're supposed to be there for media members? Nah. Would we like it? Yeah. But you raise a good point, Gail. You raise a good point. Let's move on to recap, preview some fights. Let's start with Showtime, Atlanta specifically. Pay-per-view card. Headline of that card is Mario Barrios fighting Tank Davis. Tank Davis champ two division champion technically still. He has a belt at 130. He has a version of a world title belt at 135. He's moving up to fight Barrios for a belt at 140 pounds. I go to you on this one, Daniel. Are folks making a mistake to think that Tank is just going to automatically go up to 140 pounds and just have his way with Barrios? And watching these two fighters, I think Barrios is being a bit slept on here.
He is. Look, the main thing with Tank is that people are living off that knockout that he had against Santa Cruz. But the thing that people forget is, unfortunately, is Santa Cruz was at that point a blown-up featherweight. And at featherweight, he was a blown-up bantamweight. So it wasn't really a victory. Like, it got you the knockout. But now you're entering the division where, say what you want, there's always going to be a plateau the fighters hit where their power, the ferocity is not going to translate anymore. We've seen Lomachenko hit that at 135. 140 could be the case for Tank, because Barrios is not exactly a kid that is going to fold. And he's getting, the way he's talking, he's getting under the skin of Davis's team. Like Leonard Elvede went off today on him when it came to, I think, of something in the press conference. But
is Leonard Elvede, aka Sir Nose, fighting? Is he fighting? Sir, the guy I like to call Sir Nose. Shout out Parliament Funkadelic. But is he fighting?
Nope.
Then why is he talking?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out, because I just had it up here. But I guess he got a little bit sensitive because, okay, here it is. I found it. Because also, one of the things about Barrios, like the way he brings stuff up, he works pretty well. It's not like a typical Mexican or Mexican-American kid that you would picture and stereotypically. But it's pretty interesting to see how they're shaping up when it comes to this fight. Oh, that's what he said. Okay. I think he has so much respect for John. He's my dude, but Tank is gonna fuck that boy for real. Oh, all because Barrios said that he's gonna bust Davis's head all the way to the white meat. This is a fight, Mr. Ellerby. You're a fighter right now. The main thing is offense, so you might want to be quiet about that. Unless this is a situation where their teams know that they may bit off more than they can chew. And they weren't willing to stay at 135 and wait for Teofimo to handle his business. But who knows? But this is going to be, to me, an interesting fight. And I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going to go with Barrios in this fight. But it'll be probably by decision.
Interesting. What say you, Gail?
I'm really curious about this fight. Mario Barrios, in the eyes of a lot of us, lost his fight to Akhmedov on the Spence Porter undercard. Yeah, and not only did those of us observing the fight from press row think so, the fans thought so. They booed him out of the arena, of the Staples Center. So he's got a lot to prove, and maybe this is his opportunity, or maybe a bigger Tank barrels over him. It could either be a great fight or just a horrible, messy, sort of lack of finesse fight. I'm just not sure what we're going to see. I am interested to see how Tank does at this weight. He's getting to the point where his height to weight ratio just can't carry much further. But he has had so much trouble making weight. Hopefully he's making this a little easier. But if he can't, he's in a world of hurt. He just can't go up much farther. And I think, be very competitive. So this is going to be a time to sort of take the temperature of where he stands physically. Barrios will be tough no matter what. I'm not sure his credentials really on paper match what we're going to see in the ring. I will reserve judgment, and I will certainly watch. There are a lot of ways this can go.
I'm going to reserve judgment here. For me, again, as I said at the beginning of this topic in terms of this fight, I think Barrios is being slept on in a major way. He has skill, he has power. He's the naturally bigger guy. Everybody knows that Tank can punch, but Tank, if we're really gonna keep it a buck, he's not the greatest boxer in the world. I'm not saying that he's skilled. He's not skilled, but am I going to put him at elite level in terms of in terms of pure boxing ability? No. He relies on his power a lot. If he can't hurt this dude, I think he can be in real trouble here, and I think he can lose a decision here. And I understand why Daniel is picking him for the upset. I think it has a chance. This has a chance to be a really good fight. I'm not going to call a winner right now. I think it's that close in my personal opinion. Let's move on to some more fights on this card. I may split this time up because we're doing good here in terms of time period. I thought we may run super long, but not so much. Undercard Gale, Erickson Lubin fighting Banana Rosario. Lubin, we thought 2-3 years ago he was a future superstar. He fought Mel Charlo. We know what happened in that fight. He just got caught cold, taken out. He's been on the comeback ever since. He's fighting a Banana Rosario who upset J-Rocks, who win unified belts at 154. He subsequently fought Mel Charlo as well. Got picked and taken apart. Well, not gonna say taken apart, but he got stopped in that fight against Mel in the unification bout. What do you see happening in this fight between kind of guys that share a similar name, Charlo, Erickson Lubin, and Banana Rosario?
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting crossroads fight because one of them will keep his career trajectory moving upward in the division where there's a lot of guys in play, a lot of opportunity. You know, the other is going to kind of sink behind the frontier. I wouldn't say into journeyman status, but has a lot tougher road to stay with the guys up at the top level. When Lubin and Jarrett Hurd were coming up together, you know, sort of on the same parallel tracks, you know, and they were both flashy looking prospects. You know, you were either one camp or the other. You were that Lubin was going to be the prospect of the year to really make it, or that Hurd was. Well, Hurd has now stumbled pretty badly, which is kind of surprising. How's Lubin going to do? You know, they've all had these layoffs. I'm a little concerned about seeing history repeat itself here because their careers have shared a lot of similarities. You know, Rosario has always been kind of a surprise. You know, he came out of nowhere to win his title in the first place. Can he rally back? You know, can he sort of, you know, can lightning strike twice? Is where I look at Rosario. He always gives a good effort. And he's such a likable fighter from a fan point of view. I'm not sure. I think it will really come down to will for both these guys. Who wants it? Who trained harder? Their skill levels are comparable. It should provide plenty of action. I think it will go the distance, however, and that's not a bad thing. Both of them could probably use the work, and they can sharpen the saw a little bit against each other. May the best man win.
I mentioned Julian Williams when talking about Banana Rosario. Williams is a guy that Banana beats, right? He's going to fight on this card. I would talk about it, but the problem is late word broke that he's, let me take that back. Julian Williams was supposed to be on this card, right? But going to fight Brian Mendoza. But late word that he is no longer part of this card. Brian Mendoza mentioned something about it on his Instagram. So Mendoza is going to fight, apparently. Just don't know who he's going to fight yet. So I can't give kind of an analysis of that fight since Williams apparently dropped out within the past 24 hours. Okay, cool. Thanks for the update. Let's go from that pay-per-view card in Atlanta. The two fight is going to take place on, I can't remember if it's ESPN or ESPN Plus, but anyway, the return of Vasiliy Lomachenko, former 3-division champion. Last fight, we know what happened with him. Lost a very, very close fight to Teofimo. There are plenty of people who felt he beat Teofimo Lopez that night, October last year. Was injured, had surgery, making his comeback against Nakatani, who his last bout stopped Verdejo. We all know the troubles that's come in terms of Verdejo and that ugly, let's just call it for what it is, murder that he committed, because I think he did it. There's no doubt about it. He did. He turned himself in. The murder of his the woman he was cheating he was cheating on in terms of his wife, right? His affair. He murdered her in a brutal and ugly fashion, something we talked about here on Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Well, he's Lomachenko's fighting Nakatani, lightweight bout. Gail, Loma is 32, 33 years old now. We know what kind of fighter he was. A lot of people had him as number one pound for pound before the fight with Teofimo. Given the time off, given the subsequent surgery, what do you expect to see from Loma against Nakatani, who's no slouch at 135? No slouch at all.
Not at all. Lomachenko needs a good performance, a solid performance. He needs to turn back the clock. He needs to bring out the matrix, or the comments and the sort of negative buzz behind him is just going to grow, and that's going to be a problem for him. He can position the Lopez fight as a one-off situation. Some of the excuses he made, will seem to stick a little better, or maybe go down a little better as to why he lost. If he has a good showing against Nakatani, I do think it's the right style matchup for him. He should be able to settle in, get down to business. That's what he needs to do. He cannot play with his food. He cannot mess around. He's got to impress. This is a card on ESPN Plus, which is interesting. So it's a bit of a hardcore fans fight. I think there's also a bit of protection in that. They're not putting Lomachenko across the main cable network. I'm not sure if that's a bet being hedged. I find that rather interesting. Anytime Lomachenko gets in the ring, you want to see it. But is he going to get old overnight? He's got a lot of mileage on him. For a guy who, doesn't show a lot of fights on his professional record because of his amateur career. And it's rolled up a lot of mileage on him, So when you look at somebody and think, well, they've only had 16 professional fights. Well, no, you look at his amateur, record. It's, the official record in BoxRec is a fraction of what it really is. It's just, it is going to be something we're all going to watch, and every little flinch and every move in the fight is going to get analyzed to death because of Lomachenko's stature in the sport. But he has lost before. Lopez, he lost to Orlando Salido, and a lot of the problem is when he fights at too big a weight division for him. He's a small guy. He needs to fight opponents, essentially as small as he can, and that's where he excels. He's ambitious. He wanted these bigger names. It's just not working for him. So we'll see what he's got. We'll see how much gas is left in the Matrix tank.
And thanks for the correction in the private chat. That fight between Lomachenko and Nakatani is going to be on ESPN Plus. Going to go to both of you for this one final fight if you want to talk about it. On the undercard, interesting bout between Jean-Jacques Alamkanuli, rising middleweight, super middleweight contender. I think he's already ranked pretty high by the WBO, right? Fighting former world title challenger, I think champion, Rob Brandt, Daniel Gale, whoever wants to touch this. Interesting step-up fight for John Beck. How do you think he will fare?
This is going to be interesting to me. It is interesting. Yes, and Brandt, yeah, you can tell from the world champion because he's the guy that beat Murata.
Yes, thank you.
So that's going to be a very, very interesting test because he proved in that win versus Murata that he is serviceable at that level. Brandt. So this is a good test for him. And this could be like a precursor to the similar test that we saw with, let's just say, Bully against Rosado in many ways. Like tough, pretty raw, but exciting fighter versus facing somebody that has experience and some success at a world level, but not a whole lot of it. It's a good step-up fight. And if I'm Top Rank, I'm hoping history does not repeat itself where the old hand winds up coming out on top.
Indeed. Go ahead, Gil.
Yeah, Daniel, you absolutely read my mind. Are we going to see a repeat of what happened with Rosado and Melikuziev? Where a young Eastern European fighter with a great amateur pedigree, just a handful of impressive fights as a pro, goes up against this, tough American veteran. Brandt's from, that hotbed of boxing, St. Paul, Minnesota. But his performance against Murata was really, really impressive. He turned himself into a fighter that hardly any of us recognized. His work rate was off the chain. He absolutely bludgeoned Murata. It was impressive. He wasn't able to do that again in their rematch, unfortunately. And Murata really learned his lesson and made him pay for it with a second round knockout. But he had a good outing his last go around in August, beat another veteran Eastern European fighter with the 5th round stoppage. So, if I'm Rob Brandt, I watch that Rosado fight a few times and get myself good and worked up and see what I can do.
Yeah, and I think we're going to end the show on that note. I want to thank Lee Groves for his comments and his questions in the chat. And look, we went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, technically 9 fights, and we got it in under 2 hours. Yay, a little over an hour and a half. So yeah, I thought it was going to be a lot.
One important detail either.
Right. Let me give an update on something. Last episode we talked about Ladies Love Boxing Show. I believe we talked about it live on air. If we did, I'll just say here, we do it every year. The original plan was to have the Ladies Love Boxing Show this evening, but in hindsight, I decided to push it back. In hindsight, it was a good decision because there were so many fights this week. It would have been a long show. Gail and I talked about when we're going to have this episode. And the plan, fingers crossed, is to have next edition of Ladies Love Boxing, pound for pound boxing report, Ladies Love Boxing episode. The plan is to have it in August. The goal is to have it either the week of or the immediate week after Pacquiao Spence. We'll give more details in the upcoming weeks. But yeah, for those who are wondering, when are we going to have the episode of the ladies on just talking boxing? It's coming. It's coming in August. Look for it around Pacquiao Spence. That's the target date and time period. Again, I want to thank Lee for his comments in the live YouTube chat. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to hit that like button, Lee, if you haven't done it already. If you're checking us out live on YouTube or will check us out later on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're checking us out on iTunes, Spotify, not iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, any podcast platform in between, we're just about everywhere. Please make sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts. If you would love to hear your comments, 5-star comment, 5-star review will get read on the show. We'd love to hear from you on iTunes, on Spotify, or any other podcast platforms that provide the space to give comments. Love to hear from you as well. Going to go around the panel here. Begin the show with ladies first. Going to end the show with ladies first. Gail from Communities Digital News. Gail from Communities Digital News and the Falcon Valley Group had a brain freeze for a minute. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk media, because that is your main hustle, you also teach media as well. Let the folks know where they can hit you up.
So you'll find my regular column at Communities Digital News, COM, C-O-M-M, Digi, D-I-G-I News, comdiginews.com. And you'll get my slightly more spicy, hot and spicy commentary at nyfights.com, where I compared our buddy Chavez Jr. to Naoya Inoue, and yes, there was a point. So take it in. And thank you, Lee. And Lee has liked and subscribed. A high compliment from the grand historian of boxing.
Indeed. I appreciate that, Lee. I really appreciate that. Along with Gail's take in terms of the comments about Chavez Jr., please go to threekingsboxing.com. Lead writer Bakari, his analogies in terms of his recap on Chavez Jr. and Silva. Let's just say, please take time to go there and check out what he had to say. He has one-liners and he has analogies like nobody in the boxing media, boxing medium realm. Just do yourself a favor and read what he had to say there. You will be entertained for sure. I'll go to you. And for those who want to hire your excellent services in terms of media and PR work, a quick plug for the Falcon Valley Group and where they can hit you up there.
It is very easy. FalconValleyGroup.com is where you learn more. Thank you, Michael.
Indeed. I'll go to you, Daniel, from the Inscriber for Boxing News. For those who want to talk NBA, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, for those who want to talk boxing, and give a quick plug for Boxing News, and when can we anticipate the next episode?
Yes, the next episode is going to be this Thursday. I'm hoping to have at least 2 guests on it because now relay it on a little bit. It's going to involve something that I think all 3 of us have been involved with in the last week, but it's going to be interesting. Obviously, in the current fights, me, Joe, and Francis, and like I said, a couple of guests that I'm hoping are going to be comping in there. But on Twitter, you can find me on Twitter, RAWKUZ99. Like I said, I do write for the Inscriber Digital Magazine, and yeah, to hit me up when you talk boxing, sports, or basketball, because especially basketball right now, because I think the sentiment right now is Ben Simmons should be traded.
He got to go. He's mentally, he's not there. He's scared to shoot the ball. We saw that play when he was there, basically open for a dunk, and he decided to give the ball up, point blank range, right in front of the rim. He needs to do some serious work in the gym. He probably needs a sports psychologist. We're gonna really be honest about it. Nothing wrong with that, but there are voices in his head. He has a lack of confidence in terms of his ability to shoot the ball, and because of that, the 76ers lost that series to the Atlanta Hawks, who's moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals to play the Milwaukee Bucks, who everybody thought they was done after 2 games. When they kind of tripped over themselves in Game 5, pulled it out the blue and beat Brooklyn in 7. So you got Atlanta and Milwaukee in Eastern Conference Finals. In the Western Conference Finals, Phoenix, they tough. They tough, man. Especially when Chris Paul comes back, they're going to be facing. They're playing the Clippers, so that should be a good series as well. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness with me, you know what it is, Brother JR at Brother JR76 on Twitter. As I said at the beginning of the show, if you want to find all information regarding Pound for Pound Box Report, the website is the place to go to, p4pboxreport.com. If you want to shoot us an email for a question and comments, you can do so at p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport. On the website, you will find links to where to follow, where to find us all over the podcast realm, where to find us, my pages on social media, the Facebook page, the YouTube page, Tumblr, Twitter, IG, where you can donate, Cash Me and PayPal donation links, and also the link to my online coaching page. As I said before, I am an online coach for Beachbody. Let's Build Together Group Fitness Challenge. If you're interested, just hit the coaching link on the website. Next challenge is starting in July, going to be a 6-week challenge. If you want to take advantage of the 2-week trial, which runs throughout the year, I would strongly advise you to do that. So yeah, all that information is on the Pound for Pound Box Report website. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Tank Davis and his fight against Barrios. We will do a recap of Erickson Lube and Jason Banana Rosario. We'll also talk about Brian Mendoza, whoever he's going to fight. We will also touch on Lomachenko, Nakatani, Ala Canuli, Rob Brandt, and we will do a preview of really pretty good fighter in the 130-pound division, Chris Colbert. He has an interim belt, WBA version. He's going to fight on July 3rd. So yeah, this has been episode 330. We got it in. I was determined to get it in under 2 hours, and we're going to do that this evening. Again, want to thank Lee for his comments and questions, for Gail from Communities Digital News and the Falcon Valley Group, Daniel from the Inscriber and 4 Boxing News. I'm your host, Michael. We will see you guys next time. Hope everyone celebrated Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth to those. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.